there's some art that people or really get defensive about, but good art allows us to look at something and say, what am I seeing? What, and think about it and go, what is that about? And engage. So if you can connect activism and art, then maybe you can open some doors, some hearts, and some minds that wouldn't have been opened up otherwise. So, and that's affect. So emotion, kind of being able to put effect, which is wanting change, to affect, which is connecting to people emotionally and spiritually, you may be able to make a change. That's artistic activism. Okay. So artistic activism, here are just some examples. You see something, it says enough. You interpret that the way you're going to interpret it, right? If you see it and it's on a wall, on near an immigration deportation center, it's going to tell you one thing, right? If it is connected to something else, it's going to tell you another thing. But it's art and it says enough. We have enough going here. So this is Sandra Bland, and it's a mural that's on a wall, and it creates beauty. There's beauty here. But then you can lean in and say, well, who is this person and what's going on? And is this the person that hung herself per the media and for the police in her cell? This is a lovely person. So you get past the barriers of the name and the infamy, and you can get people to see differently. This is just something I saw that's beware of artists. They mix of all classes of society and are therefore the most dangerous, because artists are allowed to enter doors that many people aren't. I'm knocking on the door and I'm trying to get in. They're like going to say, no, brown lady, leave. But if I'm a famous brown lady artist, they're going to say, no, please come in, read your poetry, share your song. We want to hear what you have to say. So art is effective in being able, having access and being able to provide messages in a different way. And here are just some examples of different types of art pieces that are when this one says, I will not stay silent so you can stay comfortable, and art just evokes a bunch of different things, recognition, pictures, different things. And it's music. There's something I'm not going to play for you, but there's a YouTube video, and it's called "Hell You Talking About," and I'll give it to you. But it is, I think, it's basically saying, "What the hell are you talking about?" and then say their name, say their name. But what's beautiful about it, it's this young kids and this social justice tap dance group, where you have a whole community of people tapping, but saying the names of those people who have been killed, and recognizing the names. So it's music, it's art, it's posters. There are a variety of things that you can use to get people thinking differently and engaged in activism. So mine was like, it's serendipity, there was a simple walk, and then I had lunch, and then there was a simple walk with a church friend. So I had lunch at this cafe called Paradise Cafe. It's on San Pablo Avenue in Oakland, and it's across the street from St. Columbo Church. And what happens there, and I've been going, but what happens is every time someone is killed in Oakland, there's this one woman who makes a cross, and she puts it on the front yard, on the lawn of the church. And she says the name of the individual, and she puts the date, their date of death. And she puts their age. And on New Year's Eve, those crosses are taken into the church and they are blessed. The families are invited. And it doesn't really matter how they were killed, but it's violent death in Oakland. Families are invited in to the church just to have the recognition, right, of their family member. So that's one thing. And I've gone and I thought that's great. And I go over and I take pictures and I look at the names and I think about it. And I thought, well, that's interesting. But I never did anything. But this it's like has been in the back of my mind, you know. And so then I walked down an avenue with a church friend. It was like just when COVID was like, we were in the middle of it. We had our mask on. We were walking down the street, and we went to a park. And I was like, what's that in the park? You know, what's growing in the park, right? And there were these names and these faces of people I didn't recognize. There's Tamir Rice, but there's some Willie McCoy I didn't know then. Who's Nathaniel Woods? That's my last name. Is that a cousin? You know, all of a sudden I'm looking at this garden of signs and I'm wondering what's going on there. I need to know more here. So this is the breakthrough, you know, affect and effect, you know. It's like this is an activist who's putting out justice for these individuals, but puts it out in such a way in the graphics that it's very approachable. And it was like a garden, right? Of faces of people who had died. So that had an impact on me. And, you know, it was pretty massive. You know, it was pretty large and different people. And I was looking at the different people and just going, I wonder who these folks are. You know, I know the well-known names, but this takes it past that. And you know, this is one of the youngest shooting victims, and it's not a Tatiana, and I'm sorry I made it small. Ayana, I think it is. I think she was 6 or 7. She loved Disneyland. She loved pink. She was on her grandmother's couch, and there was a no knock warrant. They burst in, and then they fired some incendiary device that, you know, she was shot, and then it set her on fire, you know, and she died.
Mm.
Uh, so this is a little, her face. I was like, what is this baby doing here? What is she doing in here? You know, what happened? This is a Native American woman who died in custody. Um, you know, I was like, I was really troubled, and it's good sometimes for the water to be troubled. You know, God's going to trouble the water. You know, it's really good for the water to be troubled sometimes. So usually, what I do is when I have a question, I put it in my syllabus. My poor students, they don't know that, but if I have a question, I put it in the syllabus so we can all look at it and research it. So I put say their names. Let me change the gallery here. But I put say their names trauma alter share or trauma alter project into my syllabus for all of the race, gender, and inequality courses at Cal State East Bay in the social work program. Um, and I also did it with the church, and I'll talk to you after that. But I'll walk you through what we did. This is a friend of mine or somebody from the church. He told his son, Diane's doing this project and it's for Black Lives Matter. I think he was 6 and they were doing paper folding. So he folded Black Lives Matter as part of his project. But you know, it is, I want, so that's an impact on a 6-year-old, you know, and as well as the father. So it's what I had to tell people was that this stuff was not complicated. We weren't asking for fine art. There were some folks who were artists, but what we did the first year is because of COVID, the theater lobby was closed. So we took it over and we filled it with art. And the art, I'm a quilt artist, so that's my Brianna quilt. And I think she's behind me. There she is. She's behind me. Unfortunately, I realize my wall is covered with people who are dead, and that is. But my wall is covered with individuals whose spirits I respect and whose pictures I want to have in front of me. So my students all did this work, and the work was to find a person who died in an interaction with the police. Um, and then we're going to do some work. So I try to make sure that the work that we did, I watched my language because I didn't want the theater to be shut down. I wanted to stay in there. And I wanted the president to come in and look at it and the dean to come in and look at it. So as you can see, we had This is Willie McCoy and Charlene Lyles, and this is actually Kayla. The tree is has we got 1,000 origami doves folded uh, by Japanese elders who said nobody came for was there for us when they were taking us to the internment camp, and we want to recognize. And the other folks who were folding were inmates in San Quentin, who we have. My friend John, she goes in and she teaches them folding for peace, folding for mindfulness. So we had their foldings, we had uh, many students contributing, and this was just a huge lobby, and we completely took it over, and the front doors also. We asked the police chief at the school to if he wanted to come and say something or do something. He wasn't really interested, but uh, but this is kind of the work that you see that, and it was very simple. Do something simple. Find out about a person. Who is Stephon Clark? Tell me who that person was. Who was Charlene Lyles? And then do an art project. Tell me about her and what you knew about her. Who is a Tatiana Jefferson? And this person was an artist or is an artist and just drew a beautiful depiction of a Tatiana. Who was Tony McDade, who was a trans male who was beaten by individuals the night before his death, and basically was death by suicide by gun, but he was gunned down, chased and gunned down by the police. And and then Stephon Clark, someone had their one of their students at their intern draw a picture, and then they put the picture on the T-shirt. I did this. Uh, Al Jazeera did a whole series of pictures and beautiful depictions of folks who were killed, and I just put the males together just so that I think quilts are beautiful things and they hold history, and so we did that. And so you can see that what happened for my students, and then they have to do a presentation, is that they stood up and they told the story of the individual, and they talked about their lives, and they talked about their friends, and they talked about justice, and they talked about their children, and they just, really went in deep. And that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Wanted us to get past the superficial, to get past what the media said initially, and to understand who the individual was. And so the butterfly effect is that then I transferred that to my church. I was like, I've done it now, going on my third year now with my students. Why don't we do it at church? Because we keep talking about being a social justice oriented, racial justice oriented church. And I challenge that in ways. It's like, so you have to operationalize that. You have to do a thing. You have to do some things that are real and that aren't necessarily comfortable. So what did we do? Well, we had a series of meeting at the church, and about 25 people signed up for a lesson on how we would do this. And what they did is, this is just an example for you. They chose a person that they didn't know of. I was like, no George Floyd for you. No, there are some people who you just, we know kind of the story a little bit more. But so I chose in this case, the second year we decided that we would go with the church that we would go, not necessarily always with Black folks. So Claudia Gomez, I found her. She was shot in the head by a border patrol 15 minutes after she crossed the border. She's 20 years old. So you find the story, you make it real, and you get to know the lives of the individuals. You go, and find out what the family's doing now. Every morning after their two youngest daughters go to school, Gilberto Gomez and Lydia Gonzalez trek to a brightly colored hillside cemetery to lay fresh flowers at their eldest daughter's grave. So you talk about who was left behind and the facts about that. And then you get the pictures and you start looking in the face and you fall in love with the individual, and it breaks your heart that this person who was Mayan and spoke Mam and who just came across the border couldn't be allowed to cross the border and was killed. And then you just find out more about them, more about them, more about them. And that's kind of what, and you find out who was there, who witnessed it. Who witnessed this? Here's a woman who testified. But for one of our women, she was pregnant, so we lost the baby, and she had three children, and one was a toddler who crawled in her blood. You know, what was that scene like? Understanding that the grief goes on, and kind of what's happened. One thing I wanted, this really bulky officer said that she was using a blunt weapon to attack him, which is why he shot her. And then they retracted that statement, you know, and it still isn't resolved. A lot of these things aren't resolved. So this is kind of what we did. We did a lot of research. We looked at obituaries. We found pictures. People did slides. They came up with art projects, and um, and then we honored their lives by telling their stories. And this is what we did at church. At church, we uh, we brought the pictures into the sanctuary, and we presented the pictures online to our congregation and consecrated those pictures and said prayers over those pictures. And then we hung them in the windows of the church, um, in a display called Beyond February, because we said we need to go beyond February. You know, we need to stop thinking about that. These things happen just to, you know, don't honor people around February. That's like performative. So, and then we took those art pieces again and prayed over them and talked about what had happened since. Had police officers been held accountable? You know, what was going on? There were a lot of judgments where cities would pay a lot of money, but the police officers would be exonerated. So $3.5 million later, but uh, no court making decisions, negative decisions. That's kind of changed. So here's our window. This is what happened. We decided we loved our windows, but they were kind of empty. And so we put the pictures up in the windows of and the, and we had somebody come by who said, "Oh, I see. You don't really have to be an artist to do this," because they were afraid that they'd have to do like great art. And she's like, "No, no, I can do a poster. I'm good with that. I can get a poster up there." So we had a number. We had three of our teenagers uh, post, and then we had a large number of adults, and we were in groups, and we talked about the meaning. What's made meaning of this? What does it mean that this happens so often? And what does it mean that some of the deaths were so horrific? And what does it mean when someone gets shot 28 times and they were asleep? You know, they're just waking. What does that mean? And what were the alternatives? So the conversation about what's going on and going deeper into that is kind of what we have done. This is my Brianna and a Tatiana quilt. And I just learned so much, and I threw away so many pictures. It was like, not that one, not that one, not this one. Okay, this one. Oh, this is nice. No, I don't want her posed like Oprah on this magazine. I want to see her face. I want to see her family. I want to see the smile. I want people to know that Tatiana was playing with her 8-year-old nephew when the police came by for a wellness check. And because she went to her window with a gun because she heard somebody out there, she was shot. And then her 8-year-old nephew was questioned by the police. So I want those stories. I want people, because I think that's it, right? And that's my, in saying their name, that art activism is being able to get into the art and to have it draw something out and up from you that then you can share with the world. Uh, and I had one young man who wrote a song. So he brought his guitar in, he plugged in his mic, he just did all this thing. But that was how he expressed himself. And then I had some folks who connected with our dance theater. So they people did poems, and then the folks in dance uh, translated that to spoken word, and then did created dances that respected and uh, uh, honored those who were shot or or suffocated, or there's just so many ways that people passed. So that's the end of my say their name uh, presentation, or at least the slide presentation. That's the work that we did. And the butterfly effect is like, there's all sorts of serendipity. If I hadn't been looking at those crosses across the street from my cafe at St. Columbo and getting really interested in those, if I hadn't gone to the park and saw this garden of fallen individuals, fallen angels, I like to call them. If I hadn't done that, this would not have happened. And it 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 affected me because it was art, because they were pictures, because I could see it, and I'm a graphically oriented person. And then I've been able to share this with my students for 3 years, and with the church, we just took things down. And now I think what we're going to do is we have a small chapel at the church, which we don't use a lot at all. And we're going to try to convert that into a gallery. And there'll be a lot of pushback on this. I never said this to anybody, but we're going to try to convert it to a gallery. And we're going to try to invite BIPOC folks or Black, Indigenous, and people of color folks to post their art there, and so we're going further. We'll see how it works out and sell it, and because of our need to really give back. So anyway, that's where we are. My students are working. This is the third year, and they're working. They've given me their names, and they're starting to work on their projects now. Questions or thoughts?
Diane, first of all, this was profound. Yeah, this was very special. And I want to thank you for doing something to reshape us. I'm wondering if any media organizations have reached out to you regarding your project.
We had an interview on a local radio station as we were beginning to post this in the posted at the church, but we really haven't had a lot of media coverage or any media coverage on this other than that.
This needs to be shouted from the housetops.
Yeah, this is important. This is important.
If this
You can
was
see I take my work home with me.
I mean, we except for Jacob, we never met you, but I feel like we are indebted to you, that we were already indebted to you. And I appreciate your work, your spirit, your determination. I had never heard of that young woman who was shot, right after crossing the border by the Border Patrol. And, what came to mind is all of these people that you shared with us and, in the shrine, basically, that you've created. If this was a white blonde college student, we would all know them by name. We would know their stories.
Yeah.
We would hear their stories over and over again. But these are people obviously, I know some of them, everybody knows George Floyd, that kind of thing. And I've already forgotten her name. And you said, say their names.
Claudia Gomez.
Adati.
What was her name?
Claudia Gomez Gonzalez. Yeah.
Claudia Gomez Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say
But
her
there's so
name.
many. There's so very many. And then what scares me is that when I tell my students to go find other names, they come up with a bunch of more that I don't know. That I don't know. You know, that the death rate for African Americans, Latinx, and some Southeast Asian folks is not dropped in relationship to violence with violent deaths after encounters with police. Hasn't decreased, even though the media has covered it. So we're still having to deal with that. And when my boys leave my house, I still have this flutter and once in a while some anxiety where I just have to call them and see if they're okay. They didn't just happen to have a tail light out. And we're so paranoid. My niece and I were at IKEA, and we looked down and there were these two black folks, and there was one police car, and we were eating. And I was like, well, let's just, get our phones out just in case. And and then by the end there were three police cars. And I could see them standing there like this. Don't move your hands. Just nod your head. Be compliant. No movement. And I just thought, oh my God, it's right in front of my face. Now I don't know what was going on, but I'm making assumptions, and it's frightening that this is our world, and that's the reality of our world, and it's consistent. And what I also have the students do is look at media and what media says. Like for Brianna, who was asleep in her bed, and with her boyfriend, and they knocked on the door, they banged on the door, and she shot standing in her hallway and lies there for a while. And what the newspaper said, black woman dead in drug rape, right? That's what's said. That's that filter, that image, that's racist, that is so ingrained in who we are. We can't even say this was a 28-year-old baby who was who was really interested in medicine and doing things, and she was in school and she was engaged. And by the way, the person they were looking for wasn't there, and all of these things. So learning this is painful, but knowing it gives me the commitment to continue to do the work, because it's important to have witnesses to this sort of thing and to have knowledge. Because people, when you tell a story, and you can tell a story about a person and tell it well, then people listen. So, yeah. But thank you. Thanks so very
Diane,
much. I appreciate that, David.
Diane, this is beautiful. And I just love how it personalizes every single person that dies by the hands of the police. And it would make me really sad, but that's just, I'm sitting here thinking that, but my God, can you imagine their families? You know what I mean? So yeah, who else is going to tell these stories? Like, you just have to. It is so important, because otherwise it gets lost. But there are people like me who it's so uncomfortable, and you don't want to, look at it. This is beautiful what you're doing, Diane. Thank you for sharing this with us.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Because once again, butterfly effect, right? Now you know. Now you know, and it may change some of what you do. And if that is true, then I am very happy.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that, Marcy. I read just within the past month that Stephon Clark's family received a multi-million-dollar settlement. I can't remember the total, but that's not news. Like when he was killed by the police in his grandmother's backyard, that was the news, right?
That
And
was the news.
And that was the story. But the rest of the story is that even though none of the officers was indicted, the police department, the city of Sacramento, have to pay this huge sum, just like Breonna Taylor. It's
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so of course, things are changing with Breonna Taylor because they finally arrested the officers just like 2 weeks ago. The
2 weeks
Justice
ago.
Department.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but
Yes.
what it makes it look, it makes it look like their lives aren't worthy of justice. Their lives aren't worthy, of dignity. Their
Yeah.
families aren't worthy of dignity. And when you sweep it under the rug, you're just you're just repeating that. Even,
And
even with the
the,
money. Go ahead.
even with the money, because here's the thing: the city pays the money, the police officers walk. And that's been the pattern. Now it's changing somewhat, right? But cities are paying huge amounts of money for and not taking responsibility. So I always love it. It's like we're going to give you $3.5 million, but we're not going to say that the officers really did anything wrong, but we're going to settle with you because you keep suing us, and you have lawyers who are flocking to say we're gonna take these cases, and then the officers are exonerated or they're slapped in the hand, but a few, and it's changing, a few are being held accountable. The gentleman who put his knee on George Floyd's neck,
Derek
uh,
Chauvin.
Derek Chauvin. He he was arrested, and then they're like, we got to transfer him to the federal side because he's going to die in a state, yeah, penitentiary, and so he gets protected, after having done this thing. Or to me, it looked like he was roping a calf. He was like at a rodeo, and he put his knee on the neck, and it's just like, here I am. I've done this thing. I've taken this animal down.
Yes.
Well,
So, yeah,
you mentioned that it is changing, that there are arrests in some cases being made.
in some cases, yeah.
And, you know, that didn't come out of a vacuum. That came because of people working like you saying their name.
Say their
It's
name.
like Black, brown, and indigenous people,
Yeah,
you know, these missing indigenous women, that's ongoing tragedy, right? But
right.
it's because, things change and people will say, well, since things are getting better, you should stop complaining so much. But the reason they're changing is because we're complaining
Yeah.
Yeah.
every day. We're not going to stop complaining. We're going to keep making
No,
noise
no,
every day.
no. We have to make we have to make noise. It has to be there. If it's silent, which is why I put my pictures up behind me, it's like I don't want anyone to forget that these were somebody's babies. These were important people, and they became unimportant or seen as unimportant by officers. Um, and much of it has to do with mental health. In Alameda, there was a guy. His name, I think, his last name is Gonzalez. I'm forgetting his fresh name, maybe Albert. But anyway, he was sitting in the park and he was getting drunk. I mean, many people have sat in parks and gotten drunk. I'm just saying. And but a man called and said to the police, "There's someone who is across from us, and he's not doing anything, but he's making us uncomfortable. He's making my wife uncomfortable, right? Doing nothing." So they went in, and three of them, I think, tried to take him down. And I don't know if they did a chokehold or what they did, but in 4 minutes he was dead. In 4 minutes he was dead. And there's one young man, and he's just scared. He was so scared. He was his sister works for Facebook. He's a African origins young man, but he just ran. He's like, I'm not doing this. I'm just gonna run. I'm just gonna run. And then they took him down. And he died. So we have to, in saying the names, Kimberly Crenshaw is great at this. Kimberly Crenshaw, if you don't know her, she is just wonderful, because what she started to do was say, okay, and there's a video clip, and Jacob can get it from me, on intersectionality. And she said, okay, to this huge audience, she said, just stand up, but once you hear somebody's name that you don't know, sit down. So they mentioned all the men, Eric Gardner, George Floyd, blah, blah, blah. Everybody stood up, and then they started mentioning women, and people just started sitting down. They just started sitting down. And she said, so here's where we're going to start talking about intersectionality then. She says, because it's a crime that any and all of these people are dead. Not because they were perfect, because that's not the argument. The argument, I had somebody who talked about, the argument is what they did or what you perceive them as doing worthy. Was that something that merited this show of force, right? And so Crenshaw does a great job. And the saying their name piece comes from a lot from her saying, there are women who are dying. They are throwing them up against walls. They are suffocating them. They are strangling them. They are doing so many things to them. And we don't know their names. We have to learn their names. We have to know their names. So there's, I may be doing something, and I'm happy that I'm here, and maybe I'll do a presentation somewhere about this, but I'm glad that folks are stepping up and being brave and saying we need to do this, and we need to shine a light on this. Our forefathers, folks who worked to get us where we are, worked by shining the light on the dark, and we have to shine light on darkness. That is my belief. Any other questions, dear people?
Diane, I was wondering, I love everything that you presented tonight, but I was wondering, before you start the artwork that the finished product that you present, do you have to ask the family's permission to gather all the history and everything?
No, not really, because what we do is we go to public sources and we gather information that's already published. We don't have access to, or I don't ask my students or the church to get anything that's private, or letters or anything like that. So we try to keep it based on what's out there.
Okay. Thank you.
If I hear from a lawyer, though, I'm gonna call you and tell you that
all right,
I was wrong. I was just like,
I was wrong. I'll get you out.
Okay, thank you.
Leave her alone. She's innocent.
Leave her alone. I was just trying my best.
She's doing good trouble. In good trouble.
Good trouble. We gotta do good trouble. Yeah.
Also interested in what prompted Jacob to put this together tonight.
I am a fan of Diane's, and I'm also still involved with the Deaf Deported CSUMB. CSU is where we were talking about putting on a performance like you and I would go and dug the woods on the call, and I would really inspired by some of her ideas, and so I invited her because it brought back memories of her activism.
Say again.
I just said I was really swiggled accused in the meeting a month ago with Doug, your Eric Coopers.
Oh yeah, Eric Coopers,
Yeah,
who was my partner in crime here.
yeah.
We took over the theater. We wouldn't give it up. It was like, it's COVID. Nobody coming in here. So we're just gonna take away the entire. We took it over the center part. Then we just like spread out into the wings. And then we put like a banner up, and then we covered the windows. Uh, and I guess at some point they told them about a year in, get out. And so we had to take our stuff down. But you're right, because this was a partnership with dance and theater and social work. And this year we're going to do a partnership. It's going to be around Seder, and it's going to, I guess in Seder there are like 7 plagues or a number of plagues that they talk about historically, and we're going to talk about modern plagues, modern things that are plaguing the country: racism, homophobia, trans oppression, et cetera, et cetera. And then he's going to do these big productions. I have friends who always do like major big productions, and I'm like, I don't know how I can fit into this, but I'm gonna try. So we're going to be working with Eric to see what it is we can do.
Please do try. And I'm wondering if Andrea has any ideas of how that fits with Seder.
It sounds amazing. Wow, I'm just in awe of everything you're doing, Professor Woods. Really, like, wow. I need to think about it. But yeah, no, that sounds amazing. Yeah.
Are there plagues associated with Seder though?
So I'm sorry. What the
Plagues.
sound is a little muffled. What was the?
It is muffled, isn't it?
No, it's just from my computer. What was your specific question? Sorry.
So with Eric, what he's talking about, plagues being associated with Seder, or some aspect of it.
Yes, so during the Passover Seder, which is, when Jews, we recount our journey from slavery to freedom. So during there were 10 plagues. There were 10 plagues on the Egyptians, upon the Egyptians. So during the Seder, when we recount the 10 plagues, and I don't know them in order, but anyway, there are 10 of them: locusts, frogs, boils, the killing of the firstborn, a few more. Yeah. So when we recount them during the Seder, we take our finger and we dip it in the wine, our pinky, and we dip our pinky in the wine or grape juice. And when we recite each plague, we dip our pinky in the wine and put the drop of wine from our pinky on a plate. And that represents the diminishing of our joy because of the plagues that God inflicted upon the Egyptians. So it takes away our joy, even though it led up to our, Pharaoh saying, go, get out of here, right? With the 10th plague, which was the slaying of the firstborn.
The firstborn.
Including Pharaoh's son. So it demonstrates our recognizing our sorrow, because our cup of wine of joy is diminished because of the plagues. I don't know if I explained that well, but
I think you did a good job. Clear. And Eric's going to be very clear once he figures out what he wants to do. And we may take some of our art and our posters and such and place them up, as because of what are the modern day plagues, and so we'll see. Brigitte, do you have anything?
I'm sorry, I missed your whole presentation because I was working, but I'm glad to get in on the tail end of things and to at least hear the discussion.
I will send my PowerPoints so you guys can have those.
Thank you. I was wondering if you had a website or anything that I could look at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too fancy dancy. I don't have a website. But I do have PowerPoints. I will share those.
I certainly agree with everything I heard in the discussion.
Very cool. All right. There are no further questions, I really want to thank you for hosting me. I really enjoyed speaking to you.
Will you mind, Doug, the words taking us out in prayer?
Say again.
Will you mind praying for us and everybody in the world?
He wants you to pray for us before we go.
Absolutely.
And everybody.
And everybody. Okay. Dear Mother, Father God, Sister, Brother, thank you for bringing us together tonight so that we can be in circle and share information that hopefully enlightens us even while it saddens us. Thank you for letting us know that every life is precious, and for reminding us that there are mothers and fathers and sons and brothers who are still weeping in the wilderness because of the loss of their loved ones. Help us to be courageous justice warriors and move forward in time. Calling your name, blessing all in the circle. Amen.
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 All right.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Woods.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh,
Good
absolutely.
to see everybody. Thank
Have
you
a
all
good
for
night.
being here.
Okay.
Hi, honey.
How do you like it?
Really liked that. I really enjoyed that. It was very insightful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for reaching out to her.
Yeah.
That was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Okay, good.
Yes. Did you like it?
Yes.
Oh, good.
After
Good.
I made David the host.
Oh, after you made him the host.
Yeah, I forget. Boy, so he does. I can't do Zoom on my laptop really well.
Okay.
It's much easier when I'm using a mouse.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I bet. Oh. Well, 24 hours.
What did Mom make for dinner?
Well, we haven't had dinner yet. We were gonna wait until after this. So I'm not sure. I'm assuming we're having leftovers. But huh?
You're my kind of person if you're okay with that.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
love leftovers.
But I think me and my friend camping is great.
Uh-huh.
And so we're running his like little campaign, and he's like, who wants McDonald's? And my friend turned to him and said, I'm sure there are much better places we can go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I find that was put off.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine so. So did you go to McDonald's or did you go somewhere else?
No, we went nowhere.
Oh, you went nowhere?
We did cut the trip short.
Oh, did he?
We were so put off by my friend.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, but he was okay with socializing, but
Uh-huh.
everything had to go perfect for him.
Oh, really?
Like there would I took him swimming at the pool, and there was a really annoying woman who was old who kept saying, "You're in my season to her a good go fuck yourself."
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Oh, wow. Huh. Wow. Huh. Hmm. Wow. So did you have dinner yet?